Hey, y'all, welcome back to the podcast. And today, I'm not going to hold your hand when I say this, but sometimes you got to just chill and let it all work out. And I would say, like, this is actually like a fun episode for me because it came from like this aha moment of something that happened in my past experiences. And I was in the car and I was listening to Lil Wayne's song, like, Let It All Work Out. And I've heard that song a bunch of times, but like for whatever reason that day, like it just landed on me super hard. And I was like, huh. And I had realized that another aha moment that I had was essentially what that song is talking about. So I think a lot of times when people say stuff like, let it all work out, to me, it can be like super dismissive or it can sound super passive on the surface because I know, like, I feel completely dismissed, and I definitely did when I was younger, when I would have, like, an issue or a goal or a frustration, and, like, somebody who was older than me would be like, oh, girl, you're going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to all work out. And that used to be super, like, frustrating for me because I'm like, do you hear me? Because I'm not saying, like, that I'm being, like, negative or pessimistic. What I'm saying is, like, I have this like sense of urgency or I feel like I got to get something done. So I think I understand where people were coming from when they were trying to say like, chill, it's okay. Like it's going to work out. But I think when you knee jerk to positivity, when somebody is in the heat of like grind time or grind mode, like you're really being super dismissive of them. And I don't want it to come across like that. So that's not what I'm saying. Like today, when we talk about let it all work out, I'm not saying like, oh, you need to just like throw your hands up and wait around for something to happen or just trust the process. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But what because I don't want anybody to ever feel dismissed. When I say let it all work out, it's kind of reframed as like long view patience, like not avoidance of the fact that like something is, in your face that you need or want to happen. But just being able to be like, you know what, some situations, some outcomes really do require a little bit more time in the oven to bake. And I know because I'm somebody who is very action oriented and I like to like make stuff happen as soon as it enters my mind space. But it really is over time. Like you have to learn that like some stuff you got to just like start putting in the work almost like a slow cooker. I would call it like that analogy, like the whole like set it and forget it. It's like some stuff you really do just got to trust your process to some degree and like put in the work, but you got to just have patience with it and be like, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep being consistent. And then I believe that my consistency is going to yield me the positive outcome that I'm looking for. So what brought me to this kind of conversation and this realization that brought a smile to my face the other day is this trip that I went on to South Korea with my girl Mo. And it was such an interesting thing because in the moment, I didn't think about it that way. It was just like, I love to travel. She loves to travel. And she was going on a work trip. And she's like, hey, girl, you want to come with me on it to my work trip? Because I was working remote. And I was like, I think so. And ultimately, I accompanied her on her work trip. And we had a time, okay? Like, we had so much fun. But literally, we were there already. And we were just sitting in her hotel room talking, and it just, like, dawned on me. And I was like, this is what we literally, like, put into the universe years ago. Like, these are things that we said a long time ago. Like, we literally used to sit and talk, years before that and be like, oh, man, I just want the type of, like, location independence and financial independence that allows me to have autonomy and freedom. Like, it's not that I don't want to work. It's just, like, I wish I just had, more control over my own time and my own space. And we both wanted location freedom at the time, and we did not. Like, we had just regular smegular, jobs, and we're going to work every day, but we were both also entrepreneurial and were, in like startup phases too. So it was just like, we felt very tethered, like to a desk. And it was just such a moment to just be like, wait, girl, did we do it? Like, oh my gosh, like that thing we said that we just put out into the air, we're here now. And it wasn't because we spent the last, I don't know when we had the conversation, like time span, but like, it was not because we spent the last 5 years or, 3 years, striving and like pushing to be like, oh, I'm only going to take remote opportunities, or I'm only going to do work that, allows me location freedom. It wasn't like necessarily like a active front of mind intention. It was a framing that obviously both of us really meant when we were having those conversations. But ultimately we looked up, and it had been, 3 or 5 years or whatever, and we were sitting in real time in exactly the thing that we prayed for, in exactly the thing that we had asked for, and we had like said that's what we wanted. And that was just such a shocking realization to me, and I felt so grateful in the moment to just be like, oh shoot, like we're sitting here in South Korea, and both of us at work. You know what I mean? Like I'm in my hotel room, on my laptop, getting work done by day and kicking it in Seoul at night. And she's, working or whatever. Her job was actually, sent her to South Korea, but like we were doing it. And I think what happens a lot of time when you're somebody who is very motivated and very driven and very focused is that you miss that you have accomplished so many of the things that you set out to accomplish because your head is always down. Like you're always focused, you're always striving, and you don't even look up and say like, actually, I've checked up a whole bunch of boxes actually, because I think we're always so like future minded, and like there's always another goal, there's always a higher aspiration, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but we have to take stock of, the fact that like we have accomplished things along the way. Like accomplishment is in steps and like milestones. It's not like a starting line and a finish line. And if you stop, part of the way there, like it's just over for you. No, you've been checking boxes the whole time. And sometimes we got to take a breath and look up from that grind and be like, shoot, I did it. And that's what that was. So that was such a special, happy moment for us when we were in Seoul, because it was like, yeah. Like, yeah, we did that. A similar one I had that was personal was 6 years ago when my son turned 18. A lot of people who know me know that I had my son when I was 17. And I remember explicitly being about like 18 years old. Like I was graduating high school and getting ready to go to college. And I was like, okay, I just got to do my best. I just got to put my head down and try to be a good mom, and I'll still have life left. It's kind of how I was telling myself, like, I'll raise him the best way I can. And then when I turn 35, he'll be 18 and I'll have so much life ahead of me, and I'll be able to like do whatever I want and, maybe focus my life back on myself. But right now I'm going to really commit to focusing on my kid. And I remember having so many emotions when he turned 18, because it was like this sense of like, oh, shoot, I did it. Like the whole time it's just a grind. Anybody who's a parent can relate. You're just doing your best. What I'm saying? There's no right way to necessarily be a parent or like take care of other humans and take care of yourself in the process. And I just had my head down, just trying to be a good mom, just trying to raise kids and keep them alive, honey. And it was such a crazy moment where I was like, oh, this is it. I'm 35 and he's 18. And this is exactly what I was talking about when I was 17, 18 years old. Like, I just got to put my head down and make it to the end. And then we can start to see what I want to do after that. And I think that just happens to all of us like so often. And I think the reality is there were so many accomplishments between 0 and 18. I was raising a good human being and a healthy child to the best of my ability. And I don't think I was giving myself any credit along those milestones, but it didn't hit me until he was already 18 that it was like, oh crap, it's over. I mean, it's not, child. If you're a parent, you know it ain't over. But in terms of like the way I projected it when I was, 17, 18, of like, I can get through this, I can do this. It really, I had done it, and I just looked up and it happened. So I think we can all relate to like in many ways, not acknowledging a lot of our accomplishments because we're so focused on just like getting it done. Like just putting your head down and just being like, hey, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to show up the best I freaking can. However, the danger is really what we're circling here. And like the danger of not looking up ever while you're in grind mode is you miss your own progress. You miss opportunities to congratulate yourself. You miss opportunities to evaluate how far you've gone on the journey and what's left, and how much more capacity you probably need to dedicate to something, and giving yourself like those pat on the backs and those congratulations about like you're actually doing the work that you sought out to do. You're not simply just existing, waiting for time to pass. And we miss the opportunity to give ourselves, those snaps and claps because we're just, keeping our head down and trying to focus. And there's merit to that because you don't want to be distracted easily when you have something important in front of you. But at the same time, like you got to be able to give yourself your flowers or receive them when other people are trying to give you your flowers for what you're doing. And I think high functioning, like driven people are the most prone to this happening because we always have a goal. Like we always got something, right? Like always a project, an idea, an aspiration. And I think because of that, we are the most at risk for, burnout, but not even just burnout, but like not being good at acknowledging that we did a good job and that we're doing a good job. Because for us, a lot of times, everything is like the A at the end of the semester, and we don't give ourselves credit until we get to the very end when that's just not true. Even if you take it, like I said, to a school example, like you take tests and quizzes and, whatever along the way, knowledge checks and all that kind of stuff to show that like, hey, I'm doing it. Like I'm learning it. The information is getting in here. And that's important along the way, but we don't give ourselves progress reports, I think. We just, again, are so focused on the outcome that we really, really miss the fact that we are doing a great job. And there's a huge emotional cost to that because, like I said, burnout is the biggest one. And I think a lot of time, for me at least, burnout doesn't always come from physical or mental exhaustion alone. I think it can come from consistently doing something and not feeling like what you do or say matters. Like you're not accomplishing anything, you're not getting anywhere. And that is a super dangerous space for you emotionally. That has a huge emotional well-being tax. Because that's what makes us, I think, just feel like, forget it. Like, what is the point? And if we do better at taking stock of, all of our accomplishments, giving ourselves milestones or progress checks and being able to, like I said, to pat ourselves on the back and really accept the praise and congratulations for how far we've come, then I think it'll refuel some of that energy that's necessary to keep going, to get to that actual finish line and to avoid that that burnout that so many people experience. But I think we are also responsible for creating that sense of burnout because we're so prone to even making ourselves feel like we haven't accomplished anything until we get to the very end. And that's just not, it's not fair to ourselves. We all love a good party. We all love a good graduation, celebration, wedding, whatever kind of like end of situation markers that we can have. We all love that. But the reality is that sometimes success doesn't feel dramatic. It can be very quiet. And it's not cinematic. It's not going to end in like a big party, but it doesn't mean that you're not actually, like I said, checking those boxes, getting a lot closer to your goal. If it was something like weight loss or something, it's like, yes, you may have a goal weight, but hopefully you're losing a pound every week or something like that. And each one of those is something to celebrate. Each one of those is something that is important. And no, you may not be, giving yourself a birthday cake every week when you see the 1 pound come off the scale, but even though you could, and maybe you should, but it's quieter, right? Because it's become something to celebrate when you can tell somebody, oh, girl, yeah, I lost 15 pounds, I lost 20 pounds, I lost 50 pounds. Now everybody's like, oh, period, and it's very dramatic. And everybody's like, congratulating you or whatever, but that's just not the way that we should be doing it to ourselves. Like, we should be congratulating ourselves every step of the way. Every time you choose a healthy food option, over a bad one. Every time you get your butt out that bed and hit the gym when you didn't feel like it. Like, every time you meditate for your mental health. Every time you stretch, after your workout so that you're not tight. Like, every little thing you should be congratulating yourself for, because those are progress markers on the way to the goal that you wanted to achieve. And that's really important. But for whatever reason, we just, don't do that. And I think it's important to let the work compound. Because like I said in that example, 1 pound may not feel like anything. And if you only lost 1 pound, it would be negligible. But if you lose 1 pound every week, that is over 50 pounds in a year. And that's the idea around you got to really trust, like I said, your process, let it all work out, because it's working. It is working out. Even if we don't always see it, and even if it doesn't feel right in front of us, and it's not something that you necessarily feel like you should be waving a flag for at the time, it is happening. As long as you are focused and consistent and you're putting in your effort, then it's all working out, even if it doesn't necessarily feel like it's working out at the time. And the reality is progress is boring. It's incremental. And it goes, for the most part, uncelebrated. But progress is actually the meat of getting you to your ultimate goal. There is no such thing, outside of being some wildly unhealthy. It's like going to bed and then waking up 50 pounds lighter. You know what I'm saying? So, we have to allow the progress to just be boring, to just be consistent, and to just keep happening, because those consistent, uncelebrated wins are ultimately what's going to get you to that moment, kind of like how we were in Korea, where it was like, oh, are we location independent, friend? Are we in another country while we're still, working and making a paycheck? Okay, period. That is what it is. It's just stuff over time. It's making choices that ultimately end in the outcome that you are the most passionate about and the most excited about, and what you want to happen for yourself. And as somebody who is like I said, very action oriented, people who know me know that if you tell me something, I'm not the water cooler talker, stand around and complain person. I'm always trying to think of okay, so then what can we do about it? What do you want to do? What are the plans? Do you want to brainstorm? Do you want to come up with something? And because of that, I have had a personal hard time with patience. And I have definitely had a history of being an over grinder and an over striver to the point of overwhelm and burnout, because I didn't understand a key thing, which is that patience is not passive. But it feels like it to people who have only learned to grind, especially out of a trauma response, unfortunately. And all we know is if we don't put in the work, then nothing happens. So we have a hard time acknowledging that letting something work out is not a bad thing. Sometimes you just got to put the work in and then let it breathe. It's the whole set it and forget it thing. Like I said with the crock pot, you got to put that stuff in there and then walk away. And you just got to know that you did what you were supposed to do. And as long as that thing is powered on and you put the ingredients in there, in about 8 to 12 hours, you're going to have a delicious meal. But you know what I'm saying? We don't necessarily have that kind of patience with our own lives. It's if I don't see it in front of me, it's not actually happening. And I think our mental and emotional health relies on a balance between effort and surrender. It's a push and a pull. It's a tension space where it's yeah, you can front load a lot of effort and energy into something, but then at some point you need to release it. You need to release it and then just let it, like I said, let it all work out, right? Let it cook and see, if this is going to turn into what it is that you wanted it to turn into. And obviously you can keep checking in on it and just making sure that you're, meeting your checkpoints. But the reality is we do need to learn to set it and forget it more. And my sister says something all the time. And I don't know if it's because she's a project manager or she just good at talking me off a ledge, child. But she often, when we're talking, and because, like I said, I'm very action oriented, I am always like, and I have this, and I have this, and I have this, and like all these things are overwhelming me, and I'm trying to like, do whatever. And my sister is so good at like listening to me, talk about my list and the things that I've done, and in respect to the outcome that I want. And she'll often just be like, "Well, sissy, it sounds like you don't have any more action items." And I'd be like, I mean, I guess. She right. But it's like, it feels like nothing, when you're a striving, grinding personality, it feels like nothing is going to happen if you don't personally make it happen. And that's just not healthy. And that's just not really the way the world works. Like, we do have to rely on our external environment. We have to rely on just like the timing of things. And whenever she says that, it's such a grounding thing. Like, there's no more action items. You've done everything you need to do. Now you have to just wait. Like, you just got to see how all that effort works out. Like, you don't even have anything else to respond to. You got to see, you got to see what they say to the email you sent, or you got to wait for an application to be processed, or, things like that. And we don't have control over those things. And all we end up doing is like winding ourselves up in a sense of like stress. Because we think if we stay in like, stress mode, that makes us somehow be asserting a sense of like control. But the reality is you have no more control over it after you've done your action items. So shout out to my sister. She's wise beyond her years. But I think that is such a good, clear statement of knowing when to push and then when to let things breathe. And I think a great exercise is to take inventory in real time. And that is something that I am doing better at learning how to do. And what I mean by take inventory in real time is to like ask yourself and pause and be like, what did I once want that I now have? And I don't think we do that often enough, because if you are genuinely a driven person and you're consistent and you're motivated and you're action oriented, I promise you, you have many things. You have accomplished many things that were once just ideas or hopes or dreams or goals, and you probably haven't given yourself enough credit for it. So I think it's a great exercise to just sit with yourself and ask yourself, like, how many of my old prayers am I currently listening to? Living in. And then how many of, my old goals have I already reached? Like, they completely checked and I can just take them off my mental checklist. How many of my old dreams am I currently living in? Like I said, with us, with the Korea thing, it was like, dang, oh my gosh, it's real. And you will find yourself like joy hacking, because you'll be sitting there, like I said, for me, it was like this perfect aha moment of like, oh my God, we did it. Now, we were already happy because we was in Korea, honey. But it made it even more special because it was like, wow, this is the realization of a dream that we had a long time ago. And it was so special. And I think we all owe those little moments to ourselves, especially because I think we can be inundated with like just stress and anxiety and kind of like the negativities of the world. And it's important to take those moments to take stock of like what has gone right. Because there's so many things yelling at you about what's going wrong. But it's really, really important to ask yourself like what's gone right for you personally, like in your little bubble, in your sphere of influence. Like, what have I done, or what has happened to my benefit? What goals have I achieved? And that is such a special thing. And I think it's not a call to complacency. I think I used to have a really hard time with that when people would kind of try to tell me like, well, you can take a break and you can rest and things like that. And I'm like, that's just not me. Like, I don't want to rest. I don't want to rest. Like, I have goals, I have things. I remember specifically saying to somebody before that like, just because I'm living your version of the American dream doesn't mean that I'm living my version. Because I always have like big goals, big dreams, big ideas. And I think people don't sometimes understand that about people who are super driven. But I think what I needed to learn, and I'm still learning, is that you can have gratitude and acknowledgement and celebration of yourself and everything that you've done and still want more. Instead of holding hostage your own praise, celebration, acknowledgement, even, for yourself. Don't hold that hostage to the end. Don't say, like, I'm not going to cheer for myself until I cross the finish line. Hype yourself up the whole time. Like, hype yourself up the whole time. Cheer for yourself. For every little milestone. Like, sometimes, some days it's like, girl, I got out the bed. Whoop-de-doo. Okay? That's a big deal because it was a tough one. And I think we need to just get better than it. I know I need to get better at that. And like I said, it's okay to take those pauses and look up and say, like, oh my gosh, look at everything I did and I'm so happy, without that turning into like laziness or complacency. And you're allowed to still want more and strive for more. But I think honestly, like I was saying before, you actually give yourself the fuel to get that more by acknowledging all of your successes, because I think it reinforces a belief in yourself that you can accomplish things, that you can do hard things, that you can set a goal and achieve it. It's a good reminder to yourself that you're super capable of those kinds of things. So I would just say, like, as a, encouragement to us all, like I said, I'm definitely talking to myself, is to notice the arc that you're already on. I know a lot of us have big ideas, big dreams, big desires, vision boards and all kind of cool things. But to help fuel yourself toward those new goals, sit down and take some stock of the arc you're already on. Like, look back and be like, or just think back, like, dang, what is some stuff that I used to want, for myself, for my family, for my life, that I literally already have. Not that I'm still working on. Like, count your accomplishments, count your blessings, and be like, dang, wow, I have so many things that, were only just a dream. There's an idea from the past. And letting yourself feel proud of yourself without needing a finish line first. Like, that is just so important. I think that's we're all going to take that this week as a challenge for ourselves. And, the biggest takeaway, from my Lil Wayne moment in the car arc to sitting in Seoul, South Korea with my friend, is sometimes working out is quieter than expected. And we just owe it to ourselves to get quiet with it sometimes and acknowledge that we're doing the damn thing. So that's it. I just wanted to share that with y'all this week. I hope y'all have a wonderful week, and I'll holler at y'all later.